Thank you, Secretary Wilson and General Goldfein, for being in front of us today. General, SOCOM proved that a low-cost but highly lethal platform is an incredible asset to our current battlefield. And the Combat Dragon 2 program took retired OV-10s and outfitted them with commercial off-the-shelf technology. And they flew 120 combat missions and employed 63 advanced precision kill weapon systems in an 82-day deployment. And as the Air Force conducts its testing this summer on light attack aircraft, how are you leveraging the previous experiences that SOCOM has had?
Yes, ma'am. Having been involved personally in both Combat Dragon 1 and Combat Dragon 2, we are calling this, to a certain extent, Combat Dragon 3. And so we're leveraging all of those, the experience and all of the lessons we learned from that. What's important about this particular experiment, which aligns exactly with some of the additional authorities that Congress has given to the service chief and the service secretary, is it allows us to actually go out to industry and ask, what do you have that's shovel-ready, that there's not a lot of development costs, that we could actually put into the fight and acquire, if we chose to, very quickly. But equally important to that is what kind of a network will they be able to connect to? So as we look at the fight against violent extremism that extends from the Philippines to Nigeria and everywhere in between, how do we actually network this capability so that we can actually then produce the combat value we need? That's the next step of the Combat Dragon series. It's not only to look at the platform, it's actually to look at the network it rides on. And so we're hopeful that when we see what industry comes forward in the first phase of this, that we're going to hold this summer in New Mexico, that we'll be able to go on to a follow-on phase, which will be a combat demonstration.
Mm-hmm. That's very good to hear. We know that we've seen successes in that program already. So if you were funded, then would you be able to move forward much faster in some of those trials then and actually see this platform through fruition sooner because of those proven successes?
Ma'am, actually, we've got the money in. It actually doesn't cost us that much, quite frankly, to run an experiment, because for very few dollars that we've been able to put forward in the budget, we've got a partnership now with industry who've chosen to come in and show us what they have. So actually, we don't need additional funding for the experiment. The question will be really, okay, what do we learn from the experiment? And then what do we want to go forward from there? That's a time when we'll be definitely coming back to Congress.
Very good. I think it's a great example of taking what we already have and fitting it towards the wave of the future with the technology. And so if we've already proven that, and I'm sure you'll see the same level of success in your experimentation, but we need to move quickly on that. And I appreciate the fact that you do have knowledge of that. Secretary, we continue to see life support systems grounding entire fleets of our advanced fighters due to physiological episodes. And we saw it with the F-22 not too long ago, and today we're seeing that in the T-45s and F-18s. Surprisingly, despite multiple sensors in the generating systems, we don't monitor the oxygen level right before inhalation or right when the pilot exhales. It's my understanding that the same applies to the F-35. Wouldn't monitoring what exactly pilots are inhaling and exhaling be important?
Senator, I'll probably take that for the record. The aircraft that I'm most familiar with most recently that had the problem was the Navy F-18. And I'll ask the chief whether he's aware of any problems that we've had recently with Air Force aircraft. But as to what the F-35 actually uses on inhalation and exhalation, I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, General,
Yes,
can you address
so
that?
we actually have a little history of this with the F-22 as well. And what we learned in the F-22 was that what we trained to, which was to understand the indications of hypoxia, which is having less oxygen than you would normally need at altitude. We learned in that system, and the way it works is actually the pilots were getting too much oxygen. And what we didn't know at the time that we learned through that study was that too much oxygen will actually give you some of the same symptoms. So we went back and we retrofitted that in terms of how we operate. So now we're looking at that what we learned from that particular test and series and applying that to what we're helping the Navy with what they're doing with their F-18s, and we're just now beginning to look at the F-35 from the same lens.
Very good. I think monitoring throughout the system is important, but actually what they're taking in and exhaling is probably pretty smart to do as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you both for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.